Greetings and welcome everybody to Physical Security University. I'm Guy Reams, and today we're talking about IP surveillance in retail. And we have on the phone with us today Kiko, who is moderating our chat window and will assist me with assembling any questions that you might have to put into our presentation. Anyway, I'd like to welcome you, and hopefully everybody can hear me. Perhaps, Kiko, can you chat and give me some feedback to let me know that I'm audible?
Will do.
All right, thank you. So we're going to talk about IP surveillance, specifically in retail. This is what I consider one of our vertically focused courses. Basically, vertical means more of a slant towards sales in this case. And then we have another retail course coming up in about a week or two, I think 2 weeks from now. And that course is going to be focused on more technical aspects, although we'll have a little technical involved here as well. So today is going to be a discussion about IP surveillance in retail, and I appreciate those that have joined today. And feel free to ask as many questions as you want. I have enough room in my presentation time to address any questions that you might have. It's probably easier if you chat those questions in the available chat window rather than just blurting them out on the conference call. So if you don't mind, just chat your questions away, and Kiko and or I will answer them. Most likely I will address them during the context of my presentation, so please feel free to ask away. The session is scheduled to go from 10 a.m. to noon Pacific Standard Time. We will not use the entire 2 hours today. So we're probably looking at about a little over, maybe an hour and 20 minutes is probably what we'll be using today, depending on the number of questions. Sometimes people have quite a few questions, and I spend a lot more time addressing those. So that just depends on questions as we go. But I have an hour and 20 minutes of content, and we'll see where it goes from there. So let's go ahead and talk about a few things. I'm going to share my desktop, and hopefully everybody can see that. I'm also going to be displaying some product behind me. In just a minute, I will actually I'll show you that now. I have some product behind me, so if you're not used to the WebEx interface, later on we'll be looking at some video of some product behind me, as you can see in the video display. So if you're not viewing that video display, you should be, so you can see what I'm talking about. Kiko, I'm having one or two people have complained that they cannot hear me. Are you still able to hear me?
I'm able to hear you, yes.
Okay, so I don't know what the issue is. There's one person that is complaining that they cannot hear. I'm getting a chat from a few people saying they can hear me, so I don't know what the issue is.
You know what? I'm looking on here. It looks like we just had a couple people dial in. If you were previously having trouble hearing any of us, can you put it in the chat window? It looks like everybody is connected to me here.
Okay, never mind. The person forgot to join the conference, so he figured that out. So that was the issue. Sometimes attendees forget to click the audio when in the audio section they click connect the conference. Sometimes they forget to do that. So good. All right, so we resolved that. Let's go ahead and move on, and I'm going to now share my desktop here. And what you're seeing before you now is the Physical Security University. Let me before we do that, let me I'm going to reconnect the camera back to looking at me instead of the product behind me. There we go. All right, so here we have what we're looking at before you is the physicalsecurity.com website. I just want to take a minute to address this and just explain about how that works, and then we'll get into some content. So if you go to physicalsecurity.com, and I'm going to go ahead and log out here. So I'm logged out. Then when you first hit it, this is what it will look like. Physicalsecurity.com is growing. I'm adding more and more content daily. And I would hope that those of you who are pursuing or trying to become more educated or more involved in physical security would start using this as a resource. More importantly, providing me feedback where I could assist or help you with maybe content I'm not addressing that you'd like to see. And so right now I have 3 courses now available, and I'm adding more almost weekly. So the first course that we taught was IP surveillance and education. That course is up here. We also have IP surveillance in mobile or remote environments, and now we have the IP surveillance and retail course. When you first log on to the site, if you do not have an account, then you need to register. So over to the right, up here at the top, there's a register here link, or over to the right, you can click register. When you register, you'll get an account emailed to you with a default password. You will be required to change that when you first log on. After you have a registered account, you can then enroll in classes. The way you enroll in classes is click the Enroll Here option at the top, and Kiko has prepared a website that has all of the courses that I'm offering, and you can simply over to the right click Enroll. Once you enroll, we will add you to the course, and then you can from then on actually click on and go into the course content. So that's basically how you do that. Over to the right-hand side, I have upcoming events. So all of our events that we have scheduled will be over here to the right in the calendar. I also am maintaining a blog, which I post to, once a week, once every 2 weeks. And so over to the right-hand side, you'll see our blog postings. You can go ahead and take a look at those. And any announcements like new course postings I post here. I also have a tutorial section that explains how to use the Physical Security University site. I also have an event section where you can go look at pre-recorded events or recorded events from conferences that we've delivered at Ingram Micro. So that's basically how you access this. I'm going to go ahead and log on now. And once I've logged on, I want to show you this course. So I'm going to click on this course. Once you've enrolled and then registered for the, once you've registered and then enrolled in this course, you will notice that I have the online content that I'm going to be showing you today is already packaged and put up there. You can run through that content and go back over it on your own leisure. There are several video demonstrations that I'm performing. Those video demonstrations are going to be posted here. They will be posted in the next couple of days, so please keep checking back. The video demonstrations are actual product that we're setting up and talking about today. So if what we talk about today is too sales focused for you and not technical enough, then please go back here and look at these videos, because we will be doing a couple of technical demonstrations on how to set up the camera devices and networking devices that we're talking about today. Finally, the event that we're doing today is being recorded, and the recorded event from today's session will be posted up here under Archive Live Training. So that's how you get access to this content and this material on the Physical Security University website. Let's go ahead and run our presentation. A question came up about if a PSU session is live or recorded. The PSU live sessions are done over WebEx like we're doing now. The recorded sessions will be converted to a YouTube video and then posted to the Physical Security website under the archived session. And that's how we know that it's archived and not live. So let's go ahead and talk about IP surveillance for retail. The content of this course was sponsored by TrendNet, who is one of the manufacturers on our line card at Ingram Micro. TrendNet is a great company that produces network switching devices, wireless components, and they also produce cameras. They also have software. They pretty much have an end-to-end solution for small business in terms of networking, but they also have cameras and surveillance products as well. I'll be showing some of those products towards the end of this class, but I would just like to extend a thanks to TrendNet for sponsoring this, and I will be providing you with demonstrations on TrendNet products that I have here in the lab, and hopefully you'll be able to gain some benefit from that. So first off, we already took a look at physicalsecurity.com. You now know how to access and use those courses. There is a blog that I maintain. I showed you how to see that on physicalsecurityU.com, but you can also go to blog.physicalsecurity.com if you want to access it directly or if you use an RSS reader. I have a YouTube channel. If you're not following that channel, then let me show you one thing real quick. So on the homepage of physicalsecurityU.com, you can follow me on Twitter, or you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can get access to all of the videos that I produce in real time. Up here at the, I'll show you my YouTube channel. As you can see, I've been publishing videos on a pretty consistent weekly basis, and so all the videos that I'm producing on technical issues, on sales-related issues, but also on little things that I discover along the way. All of these are showing up here in videos that you can go ahead and watch. And I plan to make this more and more in-depth as I progress. So for those of you who have been following what I've been doing, this is a great place to see some of the new videos that I've been posting. Okay, so as you know, I'm building a physical security university training lab. You see the skeleton structure of it behind me in the video on the video screen. But we have some new equipment coming in. It's supposed to arrive next week. And so starting at the beginning of the year, I'm going to be able to provide training courses that give you a real hands-on experience setting up video management, setting up cameras, setting up recording, setting up storage, setting up servers to handle video management. I'm going to be able to do all that technical stuff as soon as I get that equipment in. We are planning to host two very important courses, one that focuses on network fundamentals for security integrators. So basically helping people that are already know security to understand how IP fundamentals, and I'm developing that course now. That course will be launched next year. And then we also have a course that covers physical security issues that people may or may not be aware of, whether you're experienced or not. We will have a basics in physical security class coming up here very soon. So anyway, just real quick, a preview of what is coming. Some of these courses I've already ran. We will be running another retail class coming up very quickly. That is implementing an IP surveillance system in small business. That course will be more technical than this course, and that course is coming up, and that course will be coming up in a couple of weeks. We also have a course that I'm designing right now on outdoor surveillance. So if you're interested in lighting or infrared or dome cameras or outdoor enclosures and all that kind of stuff, I have a course that I'm doing on that where I will be highlighting, showcasing products. I have a very interesting course on converting a customer from analog CCTV to IP. And that course is coming up this year, at the end of this quarter. I'm not in development of that course yet, but I have started to receive the product. And I also have a course on power considerations that's coming up, some of the issues related to power when it comes to physical security. We have one more big course coming out, which is sponsored by Bosch, and that course is basically building an entire IP surveillance system from the ground up. Using Bosch products, and that course is due to come out sometime in November. So look to that course as well. That'll be another vertical market course. Okay. Today we have basically 3 sections. The first section is a review of IP surveillance in retail environments. This is the bulk of our content today. I'll be covering, some of the challenges in retail. I'll be covering issues with traditional CCTV and why that's not working. I'll talk about IP video surveillance. I'll focus on benefits and understand what I call event-driven video, which is something you need, a term you need to become familiar with. The focus of Module 1 is retail in general, to give you just some meat in understanding the retail market a little bit from the physical surveillance perspective. Module 2 is more designed for the small business. The TrendNet products we're going to be talking about are designed for more of a small business environment. So these would be perfect for your small retail storefront, for somebody who doesn't want to spend a lot of money on a video management system, but they want a lot of the features that video management offers or IP surveillance offers. So we'll talk about some of those products, and I'm going to talk about the major components that you'll require to do an implementation, and I'm going to show you some of those components today. After we're done with that, I will introduce the deployment demonstrations that I'm going to be giving. Those are not, we're not going to do those over the webinar today. They're all pre-recorded video, but I will introduce the topics and explain what they are. And then at some future day in the next couple of days, feel free to log on to physicalsecurity.com and watch those videos. By the way, as I progress here, if I say something that sparks a thought or a concept, or perhaps you have an issue you're dealing with, or you have a customer that you're interested in pursuing and you'd like to know my slant or my feel about it, feel free to ask away. Just go ahead and chat me in the window. I'm watching that as I talk. So feel free to chat, and I'll be glad to answer your question in the context of what I'm saying. All right, let's talk about retail environments. So I've done quite a few retail environments. I've done the 3 or 4 projects I've done have been pretty large. I've done some big mall projects. I've also done some shared tenant space with many retail customers inside one shared tenant space. But I've also done a lot of little small businesses because I happen to live in a town that doesn't have a lot of large businesses. So I've gotten a lot of requests from small entities to install or input a small retail environment. And you're going to find that no matter, even if you decide to pursue a large market, you are still going to have a small retail solution because the requests are just going to pour in. Once you start advertising and letting people know that you do physical security or you do cameras, or maybe you're already doing that, you're going to find out that people want and demand a small camera solution for a small storefront. Even my larger customers always wanted a small one that I could easily deploy because they didn't, even though they were a big customer, they had separate business units, and those separate business units were spread across smaller entities. So having a small retail camera package is probably something that you want to consider no matter what market you're chasing or no matter how big your customer is. You probably want a small retail package. And most of you that are in physical security or even plan to pursue it will find that this is your bread and butter. These small storefront implementations, 1 to 5 cameras, maybe an exterior camera, mostly indoor cameras. You will find that this is the core of what you do in physical security. So that's why we're focusing on this, and I think it's important. The retail environment makes up a large majority of small businesses in the United States. This is why this vertical has always been something that manufacturers want to focus on. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about their pain points and talk about some of the features or considerations you need to think about when pursuing the retail environment. So let's talk about challenges first. So there's many challenges in retail. In fact, one of my best friends was owner of a large retail outfit in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I worked with him on a regular basis to try to reduce some of the effects that impacted his business upon growing. So as the retailer grows, as the small business grows into a larger business, starts adding employees, their problems multiply, as you can well imagine. So as those problems multiply, they start looking for ways to mitigate those problems. And there's many different ways to do this, and some are more expensive than others. A very, very common approach to these solutions is always using video. Whether it's to use video for a security purpose or to use video for another purpose, video always becomes one of the ways that they have to reduce the impact of growth on their organization. And so definitely, though, the most important challenge you need to consider is that of shrinkage. And shrinkage is not just shoplifting, by the way. Shrinkage is from whatever it could be. It could be shrinkage, by the way, means inventory loss. So if you lose inventory due to mistake or error, shipping problems, damage, you lose it due to employee theft, employee fraud, vendor fraud, or shoplifting or something else, shrinkage is a major consideration in retail. In fact, I would say it is the #1 problem in a lot of cases, especially on storefronts. So beyond that, though, there are other issues, and whenever you approach a retail outfit, you cannot just approach it from a single problem standpoint. You have to approach it from a multi-problem standpoint, which I'll address here in a few minutes. Using some statistics from the National Association for Shoplifting, just to show you kind of how big of an epidemic this is in the United States. $13 billion per year were stolen goods from U.S. retailers, and that's direct shoplifting. That does not include fraud and employee theft. That's just shoplifting. So you can imagine 13 billion is just shoplifting. So add in all the other causes of shrinkage, and we've got a multi-billion-dollar industry just in theft. I thought that was an interesting statistic. I didn't believe it at first until I started looking into it more. 27 million people are considered actual shoplifters in the United States. These are people that are active shoplifters or have shoplifted in the last year or two. They say 1 in 11 people. So we have a few people on here. 3 or 4 of us on this call right now have been a shoplifter, according to the statistic. I'm not sure if that's true. Hopefully that's not the case. Ingram Micro customers are great people. But in the United States, shoplifting is an epidemic. Now, it's not just young people. You may be thinking, well, yeah, well, all those are young kids. Well, that is not the case, actually. The evidence shows that the shoplifting statistics cross all demographic boundaries, although some demographics, such as age, does impact the likelihood of shoplifting. There are habitual shoplifters in almost every age group in our population. There are more than 10 million people in the last 5 years. So keep that 27 million number in mind, right? So they say there's 27 million active shoplifters. More than 10 million people have been caught in the last 10 years actually engaging in shoplifting. And I'm going to show you. And the other statistic you need to keep in mind is when somebody becomes a shoplifter, they usually can shoplift successfully 48 times before they're caught. So just imagine if 10 million people were caught shoplifting in the last 5 years, just multiply that 10 million people by the 48 times they're able to shoplift before they're caught. But by the way, just being caught is not enough of a deterrent to stop them a lot of times. And so we've shown that shoplifting punishment doesn't necessarily cause them to necessarily stop, although it helps deter it significantly. We're seeing that in shoplifting cases, 50% of the time they get prosecuted. Now, why are they not prosecuted? Because a lot of times it's too troublesome for the customer to actually prosecute them, which is important for you to know, because in order for you to implement a security system in a retail environment, the customer can go out and buy their own little camera system and they can put it up, and many of them will do. I mean, I had customers that would go to Costco or Sam's Club and buy some security system, throw it in their shop, and then about 6 months later complain to me that they couldn't actually do anything with the stuff, and they would ask me to come and look at it. Well, I would look at it and basically told them what was true when they bought it, which was just it was not a good system. And it may be there as a deterrent effect, but in reality what happens is your customers get used to the fact that cameras are there, and they start ignoring them, and unless you are busting people on a regular basis, and that's very visible, then you're not going to deter. So one of the things that I would recommend is when you're working with your customer, not only implement an IP surveillance system, but implement a mechanism to actually catch, produce evidence for, and get that evidence to law enforcement, so you could increase the prosecution rates from greater than 50%. If you can get the prosecution rates higher at a store, then you will see the deterrent effect happen. I've sat on a couple of police commissions, and I've learned over time that law enforcement has always explained to me that catching, just having a system in place is not enough of a deterrent. You have to have the system in place, and you actually have to use it, and you have to use it successfully. And at that point, the community of shoplifters and thieves, the message gets out that this is not a store to steal in. And you can actually significantly impact the shrinkage in an organization by properly putting a system in and having a mechanism to work with your customer to catch the bad guys. I would always recommend implementing some sort of maintenance system or incident-driven system with a retail customer that when they have an incident, they can call upon you to help produce the evidence and get it to law enforcement. And I would add this as a service that I tagged on to any system that I put in. All right, and feel free, by the way, I'll just take a pause here. Feel free to ask any questions that you have, or maybe comments. Feel free to chat away if you have any questions or comments. Don't hesitate. So let's talk about retail loss. Now, retail losses are significant. Over here, I have a pie chart that I built based on a survey that I read from the National Retail Security Survey. So what they did is they retailed 100 retailers across a variety of sizes, but they surveyed 100 retailers, and out of that survey, they were to produce some statistics that are pretty common across the industry. And so what we're looking over here is a pie chart that shows you a very important fact that most retailers will find out if they don't know already, and that is most theft comes from employees. And I think we already knew that, right? Most of us would know that. But theft definitely comes from within. I mean, I've even heard, I was at a conference where a couple of distribution companies, Ingram included, were addressing this epidemic issue of employee theft. And it is a major problem in every aspect of business, whether you're at distribution, whether you're at the storefront, whether you are a manufacturer, whether you are in shipping or logistics, it doesn't matter. Employee theft tends to be the largest source of shrinkage at a company. And this impacts you because you have to start considering, well, if I'm going to put in a camera system for a customer, I need to think about where to put those cameras. And a lot of times the owner, especially in a small storefront, really wants to get that teenager. But the teenager's theft is such a small theft. Where the big gains are going to be is catching employees stealing from them, which is more likely to occur. So it's just an interesting thing to emphasize. Just recently here next to our lab, I have a customer downstairs who noticed that I have the word physical security on my door. So they came and asked me, hey, I've been losing money out of my cash drawer, and we're trying to find out who's been stealing from my cash drawer, and we expect that it may be the janitor crew or something. I'm like, well, don't you lock the box at night? And they're like, yeah, we do. I'm like, well, then how are they getting in? Well, I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. I'm like, well, it's most likely not the janitor crew. And they're like, well, how do you know that? I'm like, well, chances are it's one of your employees. And they were shocked. Well, no, not my employees. My employees would never steal from me. And I'm like, well, if you're losing small amounts of cash from your cash drawer and you know that, chances are your employee is testing the waters. They're trying to feel you out. They're trying to find out if you are watching, right? And if you have a process for tracking it. And they're going to steal a little bit at first just to test the waters, and then they're going to start stealing more. And even the nicest employee you will find is a cause for theft. And sometimes necessity will cause employees to do things that they normally would not do. One of my friends runs is a vice president for a major grocery store chain here in Southern California, and basically 10% of his job is running the organization. 90% of the job is dealing with employee theft and fraud. So basically he has to deal with the fact that employees come in and you know, he tells me stories, you know, a single mom working for him at night will justify stealing food, even if the food is due to be spoiled soon or whatnot. They'll steal food just simply to feed their family. So sometimes the most interesting events will cause people to steal from their employers. So definitely employee theft is something you should focus on. 35%, by the way, the other big chunk of the pie is from shoplifting. just to let you know, on a worldwide basis, shrinkage is viewed as a percentage of sales, and most retail organizations, the ones here that were surveyed, reported that 1.5% of their revenues was lost due to shrinkage. So just looking at those numbers, if you look at the amount of billions of dollars in products sold in the world, that's a staggering number. We're talking almost $100 billion that is lost. I think it's like 45 billion would have been lost in 2011 due to shrinkage. So this is a epidemic problem. It's something that retailers deal with. And there's other problems they deal with too, and I'm going to talk about that, but this is the big one. Good statistics to have, by the way, when you talk to your small business companies or you start building a marketing plan to go after small business. And as you start thinking about a marketing plan, you want to come up with how can you solve that problem. And don't just think of the problem in terms of I'm going to put it in a system. Think of it in terms of I'm going to put it in a system and I'm going to put in a process to help reduce their shrinkage. You got to think of it in both those terms. So looking at some major retailer statistics and maybe applying that to what we deal with in our local communities. So I looked at some associations. I looked at a gentleman by the name of Jack Hayes is a productivity expert who does an annual fraud examination and releases results. And I took a look at his stuff, and he reports that among the major retailers, so he surveyed a bunch of major retailers, and out of a group of retailers, I think it was 24 retailers that he picked. He picked 24 major retailers like Walmart, Best Buy, these kind of ones. They had over 1 million apprehensions reported. Now, I don't know if you noticed that last year Walmart decided to be more kindler and gentler. Walmart had some bad press. One of their bad press was that, I don't know if you saw it, that it was all over the news. Somebody was accosted by a Walmart employee and it turned into a fist fight and it was a big mess. So Walmart tried to create this more kindler, friendlier Walmart. So the way it is now, their policy is if it's under a certain dollar amount, the infraction, they don't prosecute. And also, if it's under a certain age demographic, they don't monitor them as carefully. So they've kind of changed their policy. Whereas Walmart used to be very, like, you know, aggressive with their shoplifting. They made that change, and guess what? Their shoplifting numbers went through the roof. So people, they put a big giant target on themselves, and people started shoplifting even more. So I think they're rethinking that policy. I'm not sure. But just out of in 2012, the survey showed that they had these 24 retailers had over 1 million apprehensions. They recovered $161 million. So we talk about those billions of dollars being spent. They recovered $161 million. So being able to recover funds not only helps you in communicating to the shoplifting population or the employees that you're serious and that they will get busted, and that causes a major deterrent, but it can also be a way to recover some of that lost shrinkage money. Just to show you, the 24 major retailers surveyed, the shoplifting cases were about $150 average. Think about that. Out of $150 average, they were able to recover $161 million a year. That just gives you an idea of how many small little cases. So one of your thoughts from your customer may be, well, okay, so he or she stole some makeup. Big deal. It's 20 bucks. Law enforcement doesn't care. Actually, law enforcement does care. And if you can provide them with a closed-cut case, video, time and date stamp, picture of the person, item that was lost, if you can provide all of that in a nice little package, you can build a relationship with one of your local police, law enforcement persons, and they can very easily slam these through and definitely here in my community, I happen to know a DA and a couple of sheriffs that focus on shoplifting, and they love customers that put in the right type of system. They invite the police officers over to their store. The police officers look at the system. They talk about it. You get the police involved in it, and then when something bad happens, you produce the evidence. So, I mean, how impressive can this be to you, to your customer, when you engage the local sheriff or the local police department? You're building a system. You're helping them close that loop between crime detection and prosecution. Absolutely important if you want to get into this business that you establish a relationship with the local law enforcement people that are focused on shoplifting and employee theft. Even in Walmart, employee theft is 590% greater than shoplifting. So when you focus on your customer, you want to make sure that shoplifting is not what you go in for because you're not talking the right language. They're losing most of their inventory due to employee theft, whether they want to admit it or not. And by the way, I did some research on my own. I went and researched last year's Walmart numbers for shrinkage. They actually post it in their statement to shareholder, their annual statement, and they list what their shrinkage numbers are. Their shrinkage numbers are, I think, right at about $5 billion annually. That's amazing. So if you were to take Walmart's shrinkage numbers and convert that to a to a company, Walmart's shrinkage numbers alone would be a Fortune 500 company. So and Target's not too far behind them. So that just gives you an idea of how big of an issue this is, whether it's in our local community or whether it's at large in the major retail environments. Oh, and by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this. I saw an interesting statistic about bankruptcies. They say that 30% of bankruptcies filed in the with the U.S. Trustee's Office, the leading cause of that bankruptcy, 30%, the leading cause of that is shrinkage, theft and fraud. That's the number one. And I think about it, when I was a small business owner, I remember I lost, due to fraud, about 60 grand in 1 month I lost in fraud due to a credit card fraud. And I'm not sure if the employee was involved. I don't think the employee was. But regardless, I lost 60 grand in 1 month. Now, if you're a small business owner, losing 60 grand in one hit is devastating. I was able to recover from that. But you can imagine how devastating that could be, especially if an employee cleans you out. Your whole ability to pay your lease or pay for your new inventory purchases or whatnot can be based on 1 or 2 cash drawers. And to lose all of that would just be devastating. So we've been dealing with this problem a long time. Shrinkage has been around since, I don't know, shrinkage has been around forever, right? So since the beginning of time, man's been stealing from each other. So we've been dealing with this issue, and ever since there's been cameras, we've had closed-circuit television. So the problem is analog or traditional CCTV is just not working. If it was being monitored constantly, it would be working. Little gimmicky tricks that they've tried to improve the effectiveness still haven't been working. A friend of mine worked for a large retailer nationwide on a project where they were putting camera systems in all their stores, and they tried this effect where they put the monitor up to let people know they're being recorded, and it reduced their shrinkage for a couple of months. But then after the customers got used to it, the customers continued to steal, and it actually didn't get any better. And that's because people started ignoring the monitor, even the employees. And worse, the quality is so bad, they weren't even able to look at it to be able to catch anybody. So CCTV traditionally has not been an effective at deterrence because there's really no way to tie the people responsible for the shrinkage with the security system. That link is not there with CCTV. It has to be monitored constantly, or you have to go back and rewind and review, and that's difficult at best to search that video. So because there's not that link, people tend to ignore it. The only time they really pay attention to it is when something big happens, like a crime or a over-the-counter gun theft, where the police get involved. But the ability to detect, search for, find small little incidents is very difficult. The reason is because the camera systems, CCTV camera systems traditionally, have not had a way to detect behavior and then alert people that the behavior has occurred. And this is what I refer to as event-driven video. So if you want to sell an IP surveillance system in retail and you want it to be effective, now keep in mind here, every retailer I've ever met, they talk. So I had a retailer here just across the street that I worked with back when I was an integrator. And the retailer was a big furniture store, right? And we put in security systems, we put in a lot of things. And they were in a complex with 20 or 30 other retailers. And I'm telling you, shoplifting is epidemic. It spreads through the whole complex. Once a couple of people get effective at it, or once employees start working together to do an operation to steal, they start working together. And you'll notice that customer A will start experiencing what customer B experiences, and they start talking, and they talk a lot. So if I go in and I put in a surveillance system, and the surveillance system is good, you know, people will talk about it, and they may or may not ask me. Now, what's even better, though, is if I put a surveillance system in that works. So if I put a surveillance system in that works and actually catches bad guys, and I get the police to show up and prosecute, and the business owner gets the satisfaction of going to court. Oh, business owners love this, when they get to show up in court and testify again or see the prosecution occur, that spreads like wildfire. Next thing you know, the furniture store is telling the toy store next door. The toy store is telling the electronics store. The electronics store is telling the small little grocery store chain. And it just spreads, and next thing you know, you're the person selling all the camera systems in that little complex. So remember, you pursue IP surveillance in retail complex by complex, and that's how you pursue it. You got to look at it that way. Your advertising is by complex, not by type of store. That doesn't impact you. It's type of complex. And just drive around your community. You've got all these little storefront complexes. They're everywhere. One of my tricks was to work a deal with the landlord, because usually the complex is owned by one owner, and I would work a deal with them where we worked together, and he was able to encourage more long-term lease opportunities for his building space, and I was able to encourage more sales. So you want to also consider that. So anyway, but back to CCTV. Watching a monitor doesn't work. Poor video quality when you need the evidence is bad. The police are not going to spend time on this. When I had this big credit card case, credit card fraud once, I brought in a police officer, and you know, nothing against law enforcement, but this guy was stereotypical. His technical knowledge was little, you know, he had very little technical knowledge. I mean, this police officer could barely use his cell phone, right? I mean, it was not there. So, but he was the one assigned to my case. So I had to try to convince him to prosecute or to go after this highly technical fraud case. And I had no real evidence. I had a lot of paper trails. So I had to sit there and go through with the police officer the paper trail to show him how it worked, how the inventory system worked, how the credit card system worked, you know, and show him how the fraud was completed, or executed. But by this time, his eyes are rolling in the back of his head, and he's like, oh, I'll get to this eventually. And several phone calls later, he still hasn't dealt with it. So if you want police to get involved, you've got to break this down to absolute simplicity. And if they have to sit there and rewind a VCR tape or try to get the evidence off of some pre-recorded material, that isn't going to work. You've got to hand them a package, right? Here's the outputted video on a flash drive. Here is or a CD-ROM. Here is the picture that shows the person with a date and time stamp. Here is the details of how this was retrieved, and give that to them in a package. When they then they can very quickly and very easily turn that over to the DA. You got to help them do that, otherwise they're just not going to do it. You got to help them through the process. Closed circuit television just can't get there. It just has never gotten there very well. I mean, they've tried. I mean, analog providers have come up with, you know, ways to do these things, but they're just hard to work with. And so this is why IP surveillance is starting to dominate in these small spaces. Even though analog cameras are far cheaper and the recording mechanisms are far cheaper, people started to realize, you know, it's just not worth any money if it doesn't work. So there's a lot of benefits to IP video surveillance, right? And most of the benefits, well, the core benefit is that it's easier to catch bad guys. The second benefit is the video quality is better. And the third major benefit is that it's easy to produce evidence and search for evidence to give it over to law enforcement. So all three of those things are huge factors behind IP surveillance. But it doesn't stop there. There are many more benefits to IP surveillance. And these are the separation points where you become more of an expert than the next person trying to sell an IP surveillance system. So everybody's going to have some sort of camera system. The alarm integrators are going to have a camera system. The cable guys will probably have a surveillance system. A variety of people can have a surveillance system that they're going to try to offer and sell. It's become a pretty hot market to sell into now. For you to benefit, you need to not only have the camera system, but you need to add in all these other benefits. So when the owner of the business looks at your system, which may be a little bit more money than the small, cheap system, they'll say, yeah, this one may be a little bit more money, but I'm gaining all these other benefits. So let's talk about what those benefits are. First off, it's not just about crime prevention. We want to focus on IP video surveillance as not only a way to prevent or deter crime, but as a way to recover money from crime. And that's a big deal. And I would focus on that. Instead of talking about deterrence, which is a big one. Deterrence is big. But beyond deterrence, you want to talk about recovery. So not only are we going to deter the bad guys and the bad employees, but we are going to recover from attempted theft. And that's a big deal. Third, IP surveillance is much more likely to provide your employees with protection because it can be easily monitored and easily set up. And so employee protection, deterrence, and recovery are the three hit points when it comes to IP surveillance. The next thing is advanced integration features. Your organization may have, maybe they use access control. Maybe they have a door control system. Maybe they have a time and attendance system to track when their employees show up. Maybe they have an inventory management system. Maybe they have a very high-end digital cash register, a point-of-sale system. All of these things are candidates for integration with an IP video surveillance system. So if you can start finding tie-in points to other things in the retail offering, then you have a huge benefit. I'm going to talk about 10 or 15 of those integration points here in a minute, just to give you some good food for thought. Remember, it's all about event-driven video. We want the video to drive an event. No store. Now this is what happens. I sell an IP camera system to a store owner. For the first week, they're glued to it. They get nothing done. They're glued to it. They're watching their employees. They're like, oh, what's Mary doing now? Oh, I knew that Joe was doing that. Or they start saying, gosh darn it, I knew that Daryl kept going to the drinking fountain every 5 seconds. He was not doing his work. So they're going to sit there and they're going to focus and they're going to get all, but then after the week is over and they realize that all their evil suspicions of their employees are true, then they're going to get back into the normal course of business and the IP system won't be watched anymore. So what was being watched very aggressively for a week is now no longer being watched, and now they're in incident mode, which means the only time they're going to react is when there's an incident. So you need to help keep that camera system active in a role in the business, meaning it helps to do deterrent, it helps with recovery, it helps with protection. And the way you're going to do that is by event-driven video. You want the video to be driven by events, and those events are going to help your customer realize the real benefits of an IP video system. And I'll talk about some of those events in a minute. Another advantage of IP surveillance is the components that we buy to put in an IP surveillance system, normally the customer has already purchased. So a lot of the extra costs that come to IP surveillance in a small retail environment, you don't need to reinvent the wheel on. They've already got network switching. They already have wireless potentially if you need that. They may already have a server, which you may or may not be able to use. So you've got all these other elements that you could potentially reuse or repurpose in that environment. All right, I'm going to talk now about additional benefits, but before I do, I want to entertain if there's any questions. So does anybody have any questions about what I've addressed up to this point and would like to ask? You're dying to ask and you're waiting for a pause, and I've given no pause. Well, now I'm pausing. So if you have a question, feel free to ask away. I've been talking about a lot of different things, so feel free to ask questions if you would like.
I haven't seen
Kiko, I don't know if you're on, Kiko, if anybody's asked any questions that I haven't seen.
No, I don't see any.
All right. Great. Well, I will move on then. So let's talk about additional benefits of IP video. These are, so IP surveillance will sell itself when you talk about deterrence, recovery, right? When you've got that angle working and it works, right, and you bring in law enforcement, you will find a way to sell it a lot better. However, the thing that pushes the customer over the edge, meaning the thing that drives your margins up, by the way, I was always, when I sold one of these systems, I was always one of the higher priced vendors that went in, or one of the higher priced integrators. I never was the low bottom guy. The reason is because I would go in there and I'm competing against maybe a traditional alarm integrator. And a lot of alarm integrators are pretty good at this too, so I'm not going to say bad things about it. I've seen some good ones, but I've seen a lot of bad ones too. And in one particular case, I was competing against alarm integrator, and they came over this really bottom of the barrel, really cheap, low-cost system, and the customer's like, wow, it's only $1,000 for 8 cameras? Wow, I got to buy that. But my system was like $6,000. So there's this giant difference between their system and my difference. Well, the customer, you know, after a little bit of work with the customer, I'm like, there is a reason why theirs is 1,000 and mine is 6,000. There's a reason for this. So do you want to know the reason, or do you want to go on in ignorance, waste your $1,000 and not catch any bad guys? So what is it you want to do? And so after that conversation, they're like, okay, let me at least look. Now, I'm going to talk about all the things I've already talked to you about, right? I'm going to make a compelling case. I'm going to talk about the integration with law enforcement. I'm going to talk about event-driven video. I'm going to talk about ease of capture. I'm going to talk about high-quality video. I'm going to talk about actually being able to catch and prosecute using search tools that are effective. I'm going to talk about all these things, but the thing that's going to push the customer over the edge is the additional benefits. You have to have one or two of these. So let's talk about what they are. First off, IP surveillance can actually cross-purpose. So if you're putting a bunch of cameras in their environment and they're good enough quality cameras, either using third-party software or just by simply looking at it, the customer can actually start to make better store layout decisions. See, the customer thinks they know the pattern of their customers. Your customer thinks that they know their customers' patterns really well, and they try to guess, but nothing is better than actually watching the video and seeing what happens. And even better, there's software that can even do this better. For example, they have a software package out there now that can take a week-long sequence of video in a store and narrow it down to just 2 minutes. So you can watch 40 hours of video in like 4 minutes. And you can watch that whole thing And what's beautiful about it is you'll see all these patterns happening. Like, oh, that's why I'm not selling any of those hair clips or whatever you're trying to sell. You can't sell those because nobody walks by it, right? Or when they do, they don't dwell on it. So that's a big issue, right? So whenever I'm selling into retail, I'm pushing that feature, right? And I'm showing them how they can tie in to their IP camera system and use it to determine better store layout. See, what you're doing is you're converting the IP surveillance system away from a cost to the business owner, because they're going to view that $6,000 as a big hit. They're going to say, $6,000, there's no way. I can't afford $6,000. They're going to look at that as a big hit, right? But if you can convert that $6,000 to no longer a big hit, but rather an investment in better store layouts or whatever the case may be, now they suddenly change their perspective. Now you're talking their language, and that's what ultimately pushes them over the edge and buys your system instead. So just think about the possibilities. So I'm a store owner, and I'm an enterprise. I'm an entrepreneur, right? I want to make as much money as possible. So I work a deal with one of my suppliers. I'm like, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Supplier, you've got a clothing line you really want to sell. I've got a store that sells pretty good on the weekends, on Saturdays, maybe on Sunday afternoons especially. I tell you what, using my video camera software, I've been able to determine that this spot right here on this store, in this location, right at this particular place, is the place where most of my customers hang out at. And I would tell you what, for an extra margin or an extra percentage off or maybe some dollar amount that you'll pay me, I will put your product right there at that point. So you can imagine now that the retail operator can now start to use the IP surveillance system to profit from. And now it doesn't stop there. So let me just go down the road on some ideas. And by the way, every one of these things I'm mentioning, there's software out there that does this. And so I'll talk about that. Now, some software packages will have less integration points than others, but you don't need to necessarily integrate. Just because you can have your video surveillance software capturing the bad guys, and then you can have your third-party software that also uses the camera. See, IP cameras are multi-stream, which means one stream can go to the video surveillance system, and one stream can go to whatever other third-party software you're using to maybe do a store layout. Next, time and attendance. I mean, think about it. I love the employees that always argue. I swiped my card, it didn't work, but I was here at 8 o'clock every morning. There is no better way to fight the employee arguments that you have about time and attendance than video surveillance, right? I mean, absolutely. I mean, you can even produce synopsis videos for the customer at 8 a.m. sharp, right? 8 a.m. to 8:15. Here's your synopsis for the week. And by the way, you can see exactly who came in the door at 8:15 or whatever. So you can do time and attendance. And by the way, they have time and attendance integration software that will link your time and attendance system with your video that you're seeing coming in. So you'll see Susie checked in at 8 o'clock, and you'll also see the video of Susie. Well, guess what? At 8 o'clock, it was Susie's punch card or Susie's badge, but it wasn't Susie. It was Mary. Mary swiped both her card and Susie's card, so where's Susie, right? So sorry to pick on Mary. If there's any Marys in the audience, I apologize, but Mary's like my favorite. Mary, Bob, and Alice are my three favorite names to use, so I apologize if I'm using your name. But anyway, so that's a great way to synchronize that. And so synchronizing IP video with some time and attendance package is another great win for you. And talk about just an awesome way for the business owner to realize some benefit. Another way is with insurance claims, sexual harassment claims, slip and fall cases, you name it, all of the workers' comp claims. All of these work great when you have an IP surveillance system. So if you can show your customer how to very easily go back and search through video. And, you know, it's happened to me as a business owner. I had a claim. A person came into me and said, when I was in the warehouse with Bob, Bob did this, and Bob did some bad thing, right? So I don't know what it was at the time, but Bob did some bad thing. Well, I had no evidence of that at all. I went to Bob and said, Bob, I heard you did a bad thing. And Bob said, no, I didn't. I went back to Alice and I said, Alice, did you do a bad? Bob says you didn't do it. So it's this big he said, she said thing, and I don't know what to do. So I do my proper investigation. I write up my report. I put in some new ways to make sure that doesn't happen. I send Bob to training just to make sure. You know, I do what I can, but bottom line, I'm left with Alice feeling like I didn't do anything. And so I want to do something. I want to be a good employer. Well, how do I do that? Well, hey, I could have an IP camera sitting in my warehouse. Then I would have known. I would have known exactly what happened. And so insurance claims are a big one. I mean, especially on slip and fall. Although you're going to find that most insurance companies will pay it anyway. Even if you have evidence that the slip and fall was deliberate, a lot of insurance companies will you know, it depends on how big it is. But nonetheless, it is a good selling point. Finally, you can also, another big one that I like to sell on is you can analyze video to put the best people at the best times on the floor. And what I like to do is encourage my retail owners to do this. Find out when the hottest selling times are in your store. And you can do that by looking at your point of sale system. So you find out when the hottest times are. Once you found out the hottest time, now go look at the IP video. Watch the video. Find out what your employees are doing during those hottest times, right? Even better, let's say you've got an employee that you suspect is doing good. Put them in an off time and see if you increase sales. If you watch the video, you'll begin to see what that employee does. And now these become great training videos, right? So you can show a training video that says, look, watch Mary on the floor. Mary leaves her station, walks over to the customer, engages the customer, encourages them to look at a product, and the customer ends up buying that product. Now, what's even better is the retail owner can say, watch Mary leave the customer. Mary goes back to her station. Watch the customer. They've still got the product. 5-10 minutes later, customer still has the product. Customer brings it up. Customer buys the product. So this is really powerful, especially if you can show this to a business owner. They'll just love this stuff because now they can link employee behavior to improve sales, which is huge, right? I mean, this is what it's all about. I need to somehow get my teenage kids that are running my retail storefront to somehow sell more. And so how do I do that, right? This is a big problem. Final, people counting. I mean, how many people did I actually get in a store, right? Now, we can buy people counters, right? We can put in people counter systems, and that's an expense you can buy. But why not just handle two birds with one stone? Every one of the software manufacturers that we have that do video management have a people counter. Every camera manufacturer that is worth a darn has a people counter metric inside that's capable, or a third-party analytic you can tie into the camera. You can very easily, and it's not 100% reliable, but no, people counters are. Even actual physical people counters are not that reliable. I mean, the stroller is going to jack up the count, right? The person with 3 kids in tow is going to mess up your count. Somebody with a very large bag with them is going to mess up the count. I mean, no matter what you do, the people counting is going to be inaccurate. Camera systems can be just as accurate as your other people counter systems, so why not kill two birds with one stone? And so this is a great opportunity for you to add value. Suddenly that $6,000 doesn't seem so expensive anymore. Finally is traffic flow. Now this might be a larger operation, but understanding traffic flow, understanding how to manage line queues, even better, some of them have software that will detect a line queue. So you can detect when a line queue occurs. So let's say I've got more than 5 people in line to buy something. I want my software to drive an event that lets me know that I have more than 5 people in the line. That flags management, flags me at home, lets me know. Because I'm sitting at home, relaxing, watching the football game, and I'm wondering, why are my sales not doing very good in my retail storefront, right? Well, this is a great way to know. Boom, right to my cell phone, flash in a text message, you've got line queues greater than 5. And now I know, wait a minute, I'm not staffing enough on Saturday morning or Sunday afternoon or whatever the time may be. So that's traffic flow and managing line queues. Big deal in retail and definitely something you should consider selling that's an additional advantage to your IP surveillance system you're trying to sell to your customer. All right, enhanced features. Other features you may want to deploy. Now, these are more advanced. You may not do these for the small shop. You may do these for the more high-end shop, so high-end retail storefront. So let me just go over them. One is integration with access control. Tying in with your door security system is a great feature. It lets you know who came in when. You get a face shot of the person. When the door opens, you can see who it was. When the door closes, you can see who left. You can see all those type of things. When a cash register opens, you can have the PTZ camera zoom in and aim right at the cash register. So all these things you can do by tying in with your access control system. You can see when the employee came. You can see when the employee left. By the way, access control tied in with IP video is a great way to get rid of employee theft. Because I know when the employee comes, I know when they leave, I know whose badge they used, and better, I know if it was their badge because I see the badge go through the swiper, and then I've got a camera shot that shows me a picture of their face. So if they use somebody else's badge, I'm going to know it. A customer of mine had a bunch of pharmaceuticals. They sold pharmaceuticals. And so they had a problem with employee theft. Employee theft in pharmaceuticals is always a problem, right? So we had a way to tie that to access control. They swipe it. There's a camera right on that door. Boom. I got a picture of them right with the swipe. I know who went in that door and who left that door. So if during a period of time I'm missing pharmaceuticals, I know that there was only 3 people that went in there, and I've got a picture of them. I now know who to focus my investigation on. So finally, you also have heat mapping. There's new applications that will actually let you map the store. So you get a high-resolution IP video camera. So by the way, this is one of the ways you sell high-resolution cameras to your customer. High-resolution IP video camera. It looks at the entire store, right? All maybe 1,000 square feet of the floor space is all viewed by one camera. That camera can be then integrated with heat mapping software. And what you can do is you can actually track where people go in the store, and you can light up, like make it a red color, green color, whatever. You can make different colors based on where they went in the store. So now you can see where the more active spots in your store are, or maybe your store isn't laid out very good. You want to know why Target, I don't know if you've been in a Target recently, but last time I went to the Target, yet again, Target decided to change the layout of their store, right? They learned. They put in a grocery store. It's a super Target, so they put a grocery store. When they first did it, they put the grocery store right in front. So people would walk in, they would get their Starbucks, they would then go over, buy their groceries, and leave. They would never go by the retail portion of the store. So my Target has decided to move the grocery items in the back. And guess what's in the far back? Just take a guess what is in the far back. You're right. Milk. Milk is in the far back of the store. So now when I walk into the Target and I want to buy milk, I got to go all the way back to the store. And now there's no longer just a single aisleway that goes to the milk. Now I've got to pass cosmetics. I was kind of wondering, why am I passing cosmetics? Well, I get it. I'm sitting there watching as I'm walking around in the store. I would say 80% of the people that come through the door are women. They know this because they're watching the video. They know that it's mainly demographic of women. This is why they now want you to get the Target card, even though it ties your ATM. So you're not really getting credit, but you have this Target card. The reason they want you to do this is so they can know what demographic you are. And so they know that 80% of the people that come in through that door to go to the grocery store are women. They typically don't go to the other side. They come through the grocery store door. And now they figured out that the women come in and they're going to go get milk. They know that. They've been able to map the store with whatever elegant software. And now they know that women need to pass cosmetics. So I can guarantee you they are charging Revlon or I don't know all the cosmetic companies. I can't even remember their names. But you pick the cosmetic company, a MAC. There's one. I remembered one. Cool. So you can take the cosmetic company and you can now charge them extra placement dollars, or you can charge them marketing dollars, or you can get an extra hit on margins by placing their particular product right at that point where women go to buy their milk. And I can guarantee you they are tying that to increased sales of that product, right? I mean, that's how it rolls. So this is a great way for you to do the same thing, but in a smaller retail. I'm not suggesting you go win Target. You're probably not. But you can definitely win Bob's Boutique Shop or Mary's Florist or whatever. You can definitely sell a system to them that uses the same feature but does it in a very simple and elegant way. And you're going to find out that this sells the system almost without even thinking. Because now suddenly that $5,000, it's helping with their shrinkage problem. It's helping with their employee theft problem. It's helping them prosecute and recover some of their lost dollars. And now, it's not only doing that, it's helping them position their products better to sell more. And now you've won the argument. There's other analytics you can get. There's a lot of analytic companies. I have some analytics discussions coming up in future courses. Not going to do that today, but I've got some demos that I'm going to do on analytics. But one great analytics is Dwell. I love the Dwell analytic. So imagine this. I was walking to the movie theater the other day, and on my way they have this Apple store, and I've never ever been in an Apple store ever in my life, and I don't plan to, right? Because I'm an old Unix computer geek and I can't stand it. So, but if I went into an Apple store, as I was walking by the window, I noticed they had some new lineup of some new products right on the. I don't even know what they are, but there's some new products lined up on one of their tables, and there's a bunch of kids standing there looking at them. And I noticed as I was watching there, the teenagers running the store were all in the back. They were on the way back of the store, and they were just hanging out. And they weren't paying attention to what was going on. What they needed was a Dwell analytic. So they need a camera aimed at this new hot product, and they need to have that camera watching when 2 or 3 people dwell for a long period of time. They need something to happen. So they either need to trigger via text message the kids in the back, because nothing gets a teenager's attention more than a text message. So you text message the kid that says, hey, Dwell alert, somebody's dwelling over by the new iPad, go over there. Or better, maybe we tie it to the speaker system and we have an announcement happen right over where the employees hang out. Customers need help at the iPads, right? So now you are able to get those employees dealing with the customers that are dwelling. Because if people dwell, chances are they're going to buy, right? So that's what we're looking for. You can also have analytics to detect slip and fall cases. And the analytic is kind of interesting. It does it based on the time it takes somebody to get to the floor. But there's other analytics you can do as well. And suspicious objects, you can have one detect a suspicious object or whatnot. So there's all sorts of analytics. Finally, event-driven video is big. We want to tie video in with point-of-sale systems. We want to tie it with transaction linking, which I'll talk about in a second. We can even tie IP surveillance, event-driven IP surveillance, with HVAC or building automation. Check this out. Nobody is in this area of the store, so why am I air conditioning it, right? I mean, why am I dealing with the air conditioning? Why am I air conditioning something where there's no customers? So why not, when I detect there's customers, turn on the HVAC controls? Or when I detect there's people coming, turn the lights on in advance, or whatever the case may be. These are really trick. I've seen these in new malls. This mall has this light feature where the lights go off. When the cameras detect there's people, it turns the lights on well in advance. So the customers are walking, the lights are turning on well in advance. They think it's motion detection. They have no idea that it's a camera that's picking them up and then turning the lights on. So you can do all sorts of fun stuff with that kind of thing. Over to the right, I have one of our vendors, Milestone, which by the way works with all sorts of cameras, works with these TrendNet cameras, any types of cameras. Milestone has a product called Transact, and this is just an example of one of the products. So here you have an integration of the point of sale system. So the point of sale system has this ability to scan receipt, or to take the transaction receipt and send it as an image. Basically what happens, the image comes in with the transaction, and the exact product being scanned across the register is highlighted on the transaction, and an image of that product is shown at the same time. What is this designed to do? This is designed to show one of the biggest causes of employee theft is when employees ring up product A and give their friend product B, right? So we scan product A and we give my friend product B. This is how employees steal, and so we can stop that or catch that when I see the receipt shows that they bought some lifesavers, right? That's what the receipt shows, but the product on the camera image is a brand new laptop, right? So that's an issue, right? So transaction linking is a big deal in retail. All right, I am done with the major content of the course. I'm now going to talk about small business retail components. Does anybody have any questions before I do that? Anybody have any questions about what I've talked about up to this point?
I don't see anything in the chat window.
I don't either. All right, so let's talk about small retail components. So there's lots of components. The first is you need a video management system. You have to have an appliance-based or server-based product. You can buy video management software and install it on a server or on a PC, or you can install an appliance that already has it embedded in it. TrendNet has a software package that you can, by the way, for a small retailer, they give you a video management system for free. So if you buy a camera, they give you a copy of SecureView Pro for free. So if you have 1 or 2 cameras with your customer and you just want to run this on a PC, the video management licensing will cost you nothing. You just need to make sure the PC has enough storage capacity and it's integrated with the cameras so that it can record. As you get more advanced, you may want to buy a higher-end video management system. TrendNet sells a product called Luxuriate. It's an advanced video management system. You would install this on a server or on a PC with enough disk space, and that software can be used to connect to TrendNet cameras or other cameras. It works with third-party cameras as well, and you can view the video from those cameras that way. So you need to build the video management system, and you must start with that. And hopefully you understand that you have to start with that, right? Because the video management system and its integrations with their transactions, their integration with crowd counting, their integration with mapping their store, their integration with time and attendance, whatever integrations you're tying in, that all works with the video management. So you've got to figure that piece out, make the tie-ins, and then you sell that to the customer first. That starts building the infrastructure. Then you need to deal with networking. So you need to deal with switching, making sure you have enough bandwidth on your switches, make sure you have PoE switches to power the PoE cameras. You may also need PoE plus cameras to handle cameras that require more power. Maybe the camera is a pan-tilt zoom camera and requires more power, so you need to have a switch with PoE plus. You also can deal with this wired connectivity and wireless connectivity. Storefronts oftentimes will use wireless because they have difficult to reach locations or they want to move the camera around to different hotspots. So in that case, wireless is definitely something to consider. Finally, you want to deal with camera devices. You want to deal with cameras that may have different lighting features, such as low light ability. Maybe they have infrared built in. You want to deal with mounting style. Are they mounted to a ceiling tile? Are they mounted to the side of the wall? Are they mounted in a way where you can view down a long, straight aisleway? Are they kind of a 360 view where you can view the entire store from up above? Are they high resolution so you can do stuff like heat mapping, like some of these things I've talked about? And then, do they need PTZ controls? Does the store owner need to go in and move the camera around to see what's going on? Do you want the camera to zoom in on an event when it occurs? And then finally, are the image quality enough? You need to make sure you have enough quality images to produce the desired effect so you can capture bad guys and use this as evidentiary value. So you got all those issues to deal with on camera devices. Now, we're going to now take a look at some of the cameras in a minute. I'm going to show you behind me. Before I do that, though, after we're done today, I'm going to be publishing some videos on this exact subject matter. And if you go to physicalsecurity.com and log on to PSU-202 course, you will see the following demonstration. So I'm going to demonstrate how to set up a video management system using the TrendNet product. I'm going to talk about how to access a camera remotely using a cloud application on a cell phone or a tablet. And I'm going to talk about how to connect to it on the internet via a VPN router. I'm also going to talk about connecting a wireless camera to a wireless access point. Many people wonder if wireless cameras, and I actually got a question, if wireless cameras are really a viable solution. They are in small quantities in specialized niche areas. And you put in an appropriate wireless connection. So I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I'm going to show you a product behind me that actually does give you that appropriate connection and will work with enough throughput to handle a wireless camera. Where most wireless cameras fall down is when somebody does not put in the appropriate infrastructure. They just rely on like your little D-Link or Linksys or you name the small SOHO product over that the customers bought. You rely on that wireless to run the camera, and that's your downfall. Almost all the time when I put in wireless cameras, I'm adding wireless to the environment to handle the camera. If you don't do that and you try to rely on their existing wireless network, it's always a bad deal. It never works. I've never once had an IP camera work wirelessly over the customer's provided access point. Never works. Usually the access points are not designed for it. They don't have enough throughput. They don't have enough coverage. They're back in the back office somewhere with the antennas pointed down and stuck behind a computer, and they never work. So it's just a bad idea. So you need to put in the appropriate wireless. I'm going to show you a device right now, which I think is great for it, and I'll show you that here in just a second. Finally, my last demonstration is how to set up and use IP-based cameras, and I'll talk about how to set them up and show you the features. That's the final demonstration. So those 4 demonstrations will be up on PSU here shortly, and so there you go. Let's go ahead and now flip to the video behind me. So if you look at my video screen, it's now going to change, and I'm going to flip to one of my IP cameras, and that IP camera just so happens to be viewing some cameras behind me. So let me walk over there. All right, so hopefully you can hear me still. I moved my mic. Here we have a lot of cameras and TrendNet products. I'm going to talk about how each of these components are necessary in a small business, small retail environment. First off, we talked about most of the time customers need a device that acts as an internet gateway and wireless and a router all in one. You have a perfect product here. This is a TrendNet product. It's their TEW812DRU product. This particular product is their dual band wireless router. The reason why a dual band wireless router would be such a good idea, it provides you greater throughput on wireless. It can act as a router, so it can connect to the internet as well. It can provide you with multiple bands. So you can have your wireless cameras connect to the radio on one band, and you can have their computers connect on another band, thus separating the security cameras from the wireless. So this is a great little product. I actually like it a lot. I've been playing with it. It's a pretty solid little routing product that you can use. The next infrastructure thing that you require is a solid switch. What you have here is the TrendNet TPE 1020 WS product. This is a power over Ethernet switch. What's really nice about this switch is I can manage it from a web interface. So I can log on to the switch via web interface. And by the way, this is what the box looks like, just so you want to see that right there. Oops, boy, that was bad. I just destroyed all my stuff. But yeah, this is what the box looks like. So it's the Web Smart PoE switch. This handles both PoE and PoE Plus. So if you have cameras that need PoE or you need PoE Plus, it can handle that. This particular device has a web interface you can manage and turn ports off, turn ports on. A lot of times when we need to reboot a camera, it's nice to be able to log on and reboot the port, which we can do. It has gigabit, it's a gigabit switch. It has SFP modules, so maybe you need a fiber uplink. A lot of retail storefronts will have warehouses, and maybe you need to connect to a warehouse that's 500-600 feet away. Well, it's nice to have a small, cheap, low-cost switch, but that also has SFP modules so that we can connect to a fiber run maybe down the way, or we can connect to another gigabit switch. So this is a nice little low-cost product for that purpose, and it handles PoE. It's powering all these cameras you see on the table. Another device is, this is a wireless access point. Oftentimes, a wireless router like you see here is not powerful enough to handle your wireless cameras. So sometimes you need to deploy small little wireless access points like this one. I mean, I'll just have to say this one's pretty cute. Is that a good term to use? I guess it is. This is a PoE access point. It plugs into the PoE switch, completely powers. All you need to do is run one cable from the switch to where you want to position this. And this one positions in a very, it almost looks like a smoke detector or something. So it's the customers and your customer and their customers will hardly even know that this is an access point. It mounts to the ceiling very easily with an attachable thing. The cable can come right into the back of it, so you don't need to have any cable. So this can mount to the ceiling. You won't even notice it's there. And it provides, it's a wireless end, so it can provide up to 300 megabits per second using the wireless end standard. And this is what I'm testing this camera with right now. This is one of the TrendNet wireless cameras. And I'm actually having this camera go through this TrendNet wireless AP, and that one is able to handle the throughput with no problems. I've actually loaded up 5 or 6 cameras on here just to test it, and it's been great so far. So this is a great little product that you can use to do that with. And in a retail environment, you want to find manufacturers such as TrendNet that have these wireless access points like this, so you can deploy cameras where your customer would need it. Also, I have in front of me, TrendNet produces several camera products, and I don't have all of them here, but I have some of them. This particular camera is a small little PTZ camera. This particular camera, if you look on the back, is wireless. And this particular camera also has infrared built in. I can control the pan tilt zoom features remotely. This camera is great for a small retail environment that maybe can only afford 1 or 2 cameras. Maybe they want a view of their cash register or a view of what's going on in their store at any given time. This camera also works with remote deployed applications that the customer can run off of their iPhone or off their Droid phone. So they can view and run and see this camera remotely. So it's a great little camera to sell to a customer that needs that type of solution. The other camera I have here is the IP32PI. This camera is a nice little outdoor camera. It can also be used indoors. It comes with a mounting apparatus, so I can mount it, and then I can swivel the camera however I need. And more importantly, it's a fixed camera with an 720p resolution image. It also does infrared. It has built-in infrared LEDs on the front. So this is a great camera for viewing the front of the store, or maybe the trash cans out back, or whatever the case, or maybe the employee entrance, employee exit. Really low-cost camera to do that. It's got all of the cable apparatus is included in the camera. and it's got audio input. It's got audio connection. It's also got triggers for maybe a door contact. You can have a door contact linked into this. So you've got lots of integration points in this nice little camera. I also have in front of me 3 other cameras. These are from another manufacturer, but because I don't have the TrendNet model, I wanted to show you what these cameras are like, because these are very popular in retail operations. This is probably the most popular. This camera is a very discreet camera. Most of the time we mount these cameras lower in the store, not high up. We mount them lower, usually where merchandise is at. And this camera can be controlled. The view of the lens can be controlled. Very low-cost camera, easy to deploy, really cheap. And you can put this where the product is at. And this camera does a really effective job at catching shoplifting. You have a more common dome camera, which is what you see here. These are very popular in retail environments. They're mounted to the ceiling or mounted to the wall, and these are very popular. They have a lot of features. They provide a really clean image, and they're pretty low cost. More expensive are cameras like this, which give you a 360-degree view. They're usually mounted on the ceiling, and then what happens is they view the entire area of the store. So you can get a lot of coverage area out of one small camera. So these are very popular in the retail space, these types of dome cameras. And I wanted to make sure I showed you those cameras as well. All right, so there you go. That's some of the cameras and some of the products I've been used in testing. I will have demo videos that show some of these off that you'll be able to find at Physical Security University. This is pretty much wrapping up what I wanted to show you today. Does anybody have any concluding questions for me, or any comments, or any questions about the products I've shown you, or questions about other products I may not have shown you? Does anybody have any questions that they want to throw at me before we end today? Somebody just asked me about the PoE switch. Let me get you the exact product number. I'll type it in. The 10-port gigabit switch port that I just showed, some people are asking me about that. I'll give that to you. That is the, if I can find my mouse. Okay, here we go. I'm typing it into the chat window for everybody. Oops, I actually sent that to just Aaron. Sorry about that. So there, I've chatted out the contents of that product to everybody. So that's the product number if you're interested in that 10 gig PoE switch. If you have a problem finding it, just let one of the tech support people at Ingram know, and they'll get you the part number and all that. But anyway, anybody else have any questions about the products, concepts, anything? Just throw anything out. I've got a little bit of time. I'd be glad to field any questions you have. All right. Okay, well, I'm not seeing a lot of comments from anybody or any questions, so I think we'll conclude this session. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording this session now. Well, I do get a question. Yeah, a lot of people have asked me this question. I just got this question. A lot of people ask me about how can I get some good, solid marketing material on retail solutions. I'll tell you the best place to do it. Every one of these manufacturers, camera manufacturers, software manufacturers, all produce pretty good little flyer and web content for their resellers to chase the retail market. Every one of them is interested in retail. So my suggestion is to partner with one or two, 2 to 3 manufacturers and work with them on, and they usually have a lot of good material they can provide you at no cost that you can use for your business to help market in your particular area. So that's my suggestion to you. If you need some assistance finding good ones to do that, just let me know on the side via email or something, and I'll get you some good ideas. All right. Well, if there's no further questions, I'm going to stop this recording, and we will end the session. And I appreciate everybody for coming today, and thank you very much. We'll see you next class.